An Oklahoma residential purchase agreement is an essential document in the process of buying or selling a home. It outlines in writing the agreed upon terms and conditions of the transaction, including the purchase price, financing terms, down payment, and closing date. In this video, we'll cover how a residential purchase agreement works, the legal requirements in Oklahoma, and what you will need to create one. We're eForms, the biggest online database for legal documents. Stick around and we'll tell you where you can find an official residential purchase agreement specific to Oklahoma that you can modify to suit your needs. First, let's review exactly how a residential purchase agreement works. The residential purchase agreement initially acts as an offer from a prospective buyer to the seller of a house. It states how much the buyer is willing to pay for it, how it will be financed, what contingencies must be met before closing the deal, and more. After reviewing the offer, the seller may accept, reject, or make a counteroffer. It typically takes some negotiation between the buyer and the seller to agree on all parts of the contract. Once an agreement is met, both parties sign the document, making it legally binding. This means that the agreement can only be terminated if both parties agree to it or if a contractual contingency or a legal requirement is not met. So, what are the legal requirements in Oklahoma? Prior to signing the agreement, the seller is legally required to provide a property disclosure statement to the buyer. The seller must choose one of the two following types of disclosures. A property condition statement for known defects, which details the seller's knowledge of the material condition of the house, or a property condition statement for no known defects, which requires both the seller and the buyer's agreement to waive the previous disclosure statement. This one can only be used if the seller does not provide a disclosure of the property's condition, has never lived on the property, or has no knowledge of any material defects. Lastly, under federal law, the seller is required to provide a disclosure about lead-based paint exposure if the residence was built before 1978. Now that we know more about how a residential purchase agreement works and what is legally required, here are some things that you should do to make sure your process goes soundly. Include a mortgage pre-approval letter. A mortgage pre-approval letter is a document from a bank estimating how much it's willing to lend to the buyer based on the buyer's credit history, income, debts, and assets. This helps the seller determine whether the buyer is financially credible. Offer an earnest money deposit. An earnest money deposit is a percentage of the offer that is provided to the seller ahead of time as a show of good faith. It's written into the residential purchase agreement and typically delivered when the agreement is signed. Use an addendum to modify or add to the agreement. An addendum is often included with a residential purchase agreement to add to or amend any terms and conditions, rather than rewriting the whole agreement. It can also detail a contingency which allows either party to opt out of the contract if certain terms are not met. Click the link here to find an official Oklahoma residential purchase agreement, and hit that subscribe button for more videos that help to simplify the legal process for everything ranging from buying or selling a house to making a will.